Yo, what's good, YouTube, man? It's Gary with another Fan TV back at you. The video at the content is going to go smash that like button at the content of this channel. Go ahead, subscribe, man. Look, so the Ravens are back from their break, from their bye week, right? We're going to talk about some of the practice reports, right? What we got out there as far as the injuries. And then the main thing we're going to talk about is this Baltimore Sun article I just released, right? One of these tell-all articles that kind of go over what's happening inside of an organization. The kind of articles that you don't really want coming out during the season because that means there's probably some dysfunction going on within the organization. So not saying it's really not good news for the Ravens that this kind of article is coming out, but we're going to talk about it, get my thoughts, get my opinions on it. All right. But first with the practice report, right? Now, big news of the day, besides this article, right, is that Lamar Jackson did not practice today. All right, so now Lamar Jackson is coming up on officially a little bit over 3 weeks without practicing. But guys like Roquan, Stanley, Chidobe Awuzie, Pat Ricard all return. All right, now that's all great, right? But without Lamar Jackson there, without the real true engine of this team, not just the offense, this entire team, right? This run that I feel like the Ravens could make, that we feel like the Ravens could make potentially, is kind of off the table, right? So it's too early to tell right now. It's only Monday, but when it comes to like a Wednesday, when they really release the injury report and things like that, we'll see what's said, right? If he's on it or not. Well, he's going to be on the injury report, but if he says like, oh, he's a limited participant, if he's a full participant, right? We'll see how it goes from there, right? But if it's DNP on Wednesday, I'm not feeling great about the odds of him playing on the weekend, right? So we got to see what happens in a couple of days, right? So no reason to hit the panic button just yet, but the hand is hovering over the panic button, right? So I'll put it like that. All right, now the main thing I want to talk about is that the Baltimore Sun, right? They released an article. They talked to 25 sources in and around the Baltimore Ravens, right, about this stunning slide so far to the season, right? The article says, "What's wrong with the Ravens? Inside a Super Bowl favorites stunning slide." Okay, and I'm going to give my thoughts on some of the things that's overall on the team, and then offense and defense specifically, right? Because they kind of pit the two coordinators against each other in an interesting dynamic, honestly, right? Now, overall, right, the main thing you see is that this seems like a team that mentally was broken by the Buffalo Bills week 1, right? I'm not trying to give Buffalo Bills more credit or whatever, anything like that. But if you read the article, they say things like, the players for the season was over after game 1, right? They said it was the Bills game that took a beating on us mentally, where it felt like everything was ending, even though it was just the first game, right? That's a direct quote from the article, all right? And you can see that, right? The players are pressing. Oh my goodness, not again. I can't believe we're losing in this fashion. So I'm not surprised by that. And you can see by some of the actions on the field that's like, okay, once we get down, once we have this bit of adversity, they kind of fold in on each other, right? And the mistakes are compounding on top of that, right? To me, that's a lot to do with coaching. Now I look at the head coach on that. I look at every position coach, whatever you want to talk about. But the players, they feel as though that week 1 loss did a lot to them, right? So, and then also, kind of funny thing from the article, right, is that the Ravens, the coaches have taken pretty much anything fun related out the locker room, right? So we're talking about basketball hoops, ping pong tables, video games, whatever. They took it all out of the locker room right now doing this slide. Apparently, they've done this before in the past. I don't know the results of what they did in the past. If this got an uptick in performance, I don't know. But to me, it's a little silly, right? It's kind of like if you were a kid. You take your child's devices away. Hey, you get this back when you start acting right. These are grown men. These are professionals. Maybe it helps them lock in, but I'm not saying that the ping pong table is the reason that the Ravens are 1-5. That shooting hoops when they're trying to get a break from all everything that's going on with football related is the reason that they're doing these things, right? If they play better, they get their stuff back. Is that a motivation? Maybe, right? But to me, it kind of sounds like we're kind of desperate, grasping for straws. Anything that we could try to do, we're going to do to get this turned around, right? I would rather you just focus on real football reasons. But maybe they feel as though this is connected to the football reasons. They're inside the building. I can't say that. Maybe that's how they feel. All right. Now, offense versus defense, right? This is the kind of the dynamic of the article, right? This article is very heavily critical of Todd Monken while being not really critical at all of Zach Orr, right? It's kind of a stunning thing to read, right? It seems like the Ravens have found their next scapegoat, right? Because that's one of my overarching thoughts of reading this article too, is that John Harbaugh is safe, right? He's not really even mentioned in this article at all. All right. This is about Todd Monken not doing enough and Zach Orr being let down by the players. That's what this article is about, which is really a stunning development. They got quote unquote veteran players on both sides of the ball saying these things, right? So on offense, right? This is a direct quote. It just feels different. I just don't feel like guys are being put in position to succeed with this offense, right? They talked about there's too many mouths to feed on this offense, that the play call needs to be more creative, right? The Ravens have been in this offense for a couple of years now. They feel like the league has caught up to them. So this is kind of my issue, right? And they also said something about too many personnel substitutions that cause confusion because you're trying to get so many different guys and run plays for these people that it's causing confusion, right? Now, I don't really see confusion when the Ravens line up. I see more confusion on defense than I do with offense, right? Now, I'm not here to tell you Tom Mungus is the greatest offensive coordinator to ever walk the face of the earth. I do think he's the best coach the Ravens have, and he's the least of their problems, right? I do think that it's funny that the other side of this article is not really criticizing Zach Orr at all, right? But if you want to talk about Todd Monken, right? I do think there's some validity to the fact that yes, Derrick Henry's off the field too much. When he's off the field, you could get it real clear run versus pass indicators. But it's also a clear fact of the matter is that this offensive line is not very good. So it's hard to be creative. It's hard to draw up certain plays when your offensive line can't move anybody off the ball. They can't block. They can't do anything like that, right? And that's not just the guards. Even though the guards are the two main factors of this, the entire offensive line has regressed, right? And I'm not here to, like I said, I'm not here to defend Todd Monken to the highest power or nothing like that. He has his flaws, don't get me wrong, right? But when I look at this team, I don't look at it and say, oh, yeah, the offensive coordinator what needs to change, right? To me, this is a classic case of Zach Orr, a guy that's Ravens family, Harbaugh Mafia, really tied in with the Harbaughs being protected, if I'm being completely honest, right? So if I go to the defensive side of the ball, they're saying that the practice is not translating to the games, right? That they're practicing really well. Listen, and this is one thing they say, right? They even gave an example of Zach Orr being let down by the players, quote unquote. All right, they said that there was a scenario in practice where the Ravens offense, caught Zach Orr by surprise with the play that they ran in preparation for playing the Kansas City Chiefs. Right, the Ravens defense did not stop them on that play in practice. Okay, but Zach Orr saw the play, was surprised by it, then schemed against that play, right? Prepared for it for Kansas City. Kansas City ran that exact same play on one of their fourth down conversions and got it. All right. So they're saying that basically Zach Orr did everything right, but the players are letting him down with the product that's on the field. Okay. That's what's being laid out in this article. Another player says that a mistake's not going to kill you, but these little mistakes all over the place continuing, it's just like a snowball. It messes with you mentally. Another player said that the players out there are scared to make mistakes. An offensive player added that it makes Z.O. look bad when he's calling the right stuff. All right. So you have this article that's setting a clear dynamic that Todd Monken is doing things on offense that's not putting the Ravens in the right places to succeed, while Zach Orr is doing the right stuff on defense and the players are not executing. So we have one side that's saying the coach is not doing what he's supposed to do. Another side saying that the players are not doing what they're supposed to do. And to me, I just think it's real convenient, right? If you want to call out Tom Monken, I have no problem with that, right? Do what you want to do, right? Like I said, I don't think he's the even one of the main reasons for the Ravens struggle. I really don't. That's how I truly feel. But the constant sheltering and protecting of Zach Orr is crazy to me. All right. If the players are out there making little mistakes, confused, and it's a mental thing, that's coaching. I go back to the same point all the time, right? When Mike Macdonald was here, right? And I'm not trying to keep bringing up Mike Macdonald's name. He's not the Ravens DC anymore. He's the Seattle Seahawks head coach, right? But it's a direct comparison. He was a young guy, and he did coach at the college level. He was actually a DC at the college level, but he was a young coach with limited to no NFL experience, right? He was a linebackers coach previously, whatever, but no DC experience at the NFL level. The biggest thing that the player said that Mike Macdonald did was he made the defense easy to understand. He explained everybody's role in the defense and that there was little to no confusion about what your role was on the defense, right? For the first, I would say, 6, 7, 8 weeks, we saw that, right? When Mike Macdonald's telling you that there was some little bit of confusion, but then they got that cleaned up and was pretty much flawless the rest of his time here. Zach Orr, I'm still seeing players confused about what their assignments are out there. All right. So when I look at this team, when I read this article and I see that we're blaming one side of the side of the ball that's been the most productive for this team, right? And a lot of that has to do with Lamar Jackson. We're not underrating We're not undervaluing the value of having a great quarterback like Lamar Jackson. Not at all, right? Not doing that whatsoever. But Tom Monken has taken this offense to another level, right? And it has really opened up some of the. I feel like under the Greg Roman, right, Lamar Jackson, a lot of his talents were hidden, right? They shined the spotlight on one spectacular talent, which was his running ability, right? And that's great, right? But the past concepts were terrible. Under Todd Monken, they've shined a light on both aspects of Lamar Jackson's game, which makes him the greatest dual threat quarterback ever, right? Lamar Jackson is a great quarterback without the running, right? You throw on the running and something else, right? So I feel like Tom Monken has unlocked the passing game in a lot of ways, right? That has been able for Lamar Jackson to throw for 4,000 yards, throw for 40 touchdowns, all that talent that was already there that was being hit in a backwards offense that he wasn't in the past, right? So when I see this article, right, we're going so heavy to blame Tom Monken on one side, and we're saying that nothing is wrong with Zach Orr on the other side. It's only the players letting him down by Zach Orr. To me, that's a direct thing about Harbaugh and Tom Monken have a rift. All right. What caused it? What's it about? I don't know. But if you look at it over the last couple of weeks, Harbaugh has been very vocal about criticizing Tom Monken while protecting Zach Orr. All right. Tom Monken has gone back and forth with Harbaugh in the media, a little slight stuff like, oh, yeah, no. He's over the headset. He knows what we're calling. Right. Because Harbaugh tried to say, well, it's up to the head, it's up to the OC, whatever, da. So when I look at this, right, it just sounds to me that Harbaugh is as safe as he's ever been. He's not going anywhere. And we're lining up the excuses that Tom Monken is the reason that everything is going down. And when we get Tom Monken out of here, we get a new OC in the building, then everything's going to return back to form, right? To me, that's how this article is reading. All right. Zach Orr is safe. John Harbaugh is safe. Tom Monken, you're the issue. You got to go. And this kind of points back to the fact that I don't believe Tom Monken was a John Harbaugh hire at all. Right? I truly don't. He really has no connections to the Harbaugh family. And if you know anything about John Harbaugh, to get a job with him, it has to be a connection somewhere, right? And listen, that's a lot of people, right? I'm not saying John Harbaugh is the only person to do that, right? That's a lot of people, all right? But the issue with John Harbaugh when he does it is that he's reluctant to let go of something that's actively hurting the team because he has this personal relationship with you, right? But when he doesn't have that personal relationship with you, he's willing to throw you under the bus, criticize you in the media, what he has done to Tom Monken, right? And listen, Tom Monken is not a victim in this. There are things that he's done that he needs to do better at, right? And we're talking about taking Derrick Henry out the field too much, right? We're talking about pass protection plans, right? You have a bad offensive line. You need to have guys into block more. Now, listen, the Ravens don't have the greatest blocking tight ends in Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews, but sometimes those guys can't release out into routes. They got to block. Right? Seattle is doing this a lot. Seattle has one of the best offenses in the league. They don't have a great offensive line. They have a good offensive line. But last year it was terrible. But now they got a new OC. This OC is keeping more two tight end sets on the field. And those tight ends are blocking sometimes on these big design pass concepts, right? So don't get me wrong. There are things Tom Monken can do to absolutely improve his play calling. But when you have a side of the ball that is demonstrably better than the other side, but Zach Orr can't be criticized. There's nothing wrong with Zach Orr's doing. It's only the players letting Zach Orr down. That's ridiculous. All right, be quite honest. And I already see the play. Right, they're lining this up for Tom Monken to be let go, whether it's during the season or whether it's the end of the season. The Ravens lose a couple of games. I wouldn't be surprised if Tom Monken is fired during the season. All right, especially if Lamar Jackson doesn't come back. Ravens drop a couple more games. I wouldn't be surprised if he's fired during the season. And I don't think that's fair personally, especially when you have a guy at DC who's doing 10 times worse, right? But I can see it happening. Really, I truly can. So this article, if you want to read it for yourself, I'll put the link, down below, right? Obviously, it's behind a paywall, but there are ways to get around that if you search the internet. So do what you gotta do. But to me, this article, all it did was kind of confirm that John Harbaugh has his hand on the organization, to me, right? And I'm not trying to make conspiracy theories or everything that happens is John Harbaugh's. I'm not trying to be that guy, right? But if you're telling me that you have two units, right? One unit who has been good for large parts of the year, and one unit that's only had really one good game, right? You want to count Cleveland, sure, but Cleveland wasn't even a functional offense, right? If you want to say they played good versus the Rams, sure. I'm not saying that because the Rams did a lot in that game to get the Ravens life. You want to tell me that unit that had really one good performance, quote unquote, There's nothing wrong with that unit, and it's only on the players, even though I've seen Zach Orr drive 9 into coverage on 4th and 3 on a 37-year-old quarterback, right? There's nothing wrong with that unit at all. I see players confused repeatedly about what their assignments are, but that's all the players' fault. That has nothing to do with what Zach Orr is doing. It doesn't add up, right? And it's kind of a shameful thing to put this article out, and it's so one-sided. Like it's really Harbaugh and Zach Orr versus Tom Monken, right? There's no mention of Harbaugh in this article, what he's doing wrong, nothing like that. It's really no mention of him at all. It's the mention of the two coordinators, and that one coordinator is not doing enough to get the players the ball, and the other coordinator is doing the exact right stuff, and the players are not doing their job. That's just biased completely. So that's my thoughts on it, man. Like I said, I'll drop the link down there. If you guys want to read the article for yourself, go ahead. Give me your thoughts on it, man. But the Ravens have a lot of issues, and honestly, I don't think they're being honest with themselves to fix those issues. If this is what it's like inside the building, they're not being honest with themselves. I'm being completely honest, man. So, but that's my thoughts on it. It's Gabriel, Fan TV. I'm out.